bustling commercial center, but was now deserted. The damage there was staggering. The ruined buildings were like concrete skeletons, giant tombstones reaching into the sky. Entire walls had been torn off, revealing the insides of various apartments, with pipes and cables sticking out. The street was littered with heaps of rubble, with weeds growing among them. I sat down at the piano and thought about what I should sing. I had written dozens of songs in the past few months. They'd simply poured out of me. Then I remembered a poem, scribbled on a piece of paper, that a man had given me a few days earlier. His name was Ziad al-Kharraf. In the old days, he sold honey in our neighborhood. He was very well educated and cultured, and he used to be quite wealthy. I knew him only in passing. Ziad had a doctorate, but I don't know in what. I do know that the honey was merely his hobby. He used to take trips to the hills outside of town to meet with local beekeepers. Sometimes he even went abroad to countries like Yemen, where he would sample new blends of honey. But that was then, before the war. Ziad had written the poem for his wife. She had been in the last weeks of pregnancy and had transit papers for Damascus so that she could give birth to her child there. But something had gone wrong at the checkpoint. The soldiers wouldn't let her pass. Apparently, some bureaucrat had misspelled her name. She had to spend hours waiting while they tried to correct the error. When it became too much for her, she collapsed and fell onto her stomach. She died on her way to the clinic. The baby survived. Ziad had loved his wife more than anything. It wasn't an arranged marriage. They had married for love. His wife had been his best friend. They had 3 daughters. Their new baby was their first son. As the photographer was setting up his camera, a woman appeared carrying a tray. She had decided to make coffee for us, using the last bit she had, which she had saved for a special occasion. She wanted to share it with us and listen to the music. "What you're doing is very important," she said, pouring me a cup. I smiled at her with immense gratitude, savoring the wonderfully bitter taste of the coffee. Then I noticed a chirping sound, and looked up to see 3 birds perched on a second-story balcony right across from me. It seemed a miracle, for normally birds vanish as soon as the shooting begins. Only very few of them find their way back to Yarmouk, and those are usually shot down because people are hungry. When I began to play, the 3 birds started singing again. Everything came together for me. The chirping of birds, which I hadn't heard in so many months. The aroma of the coffee, which I had been longing for. The rage born out of hunger. My aching eye where my son had poked me. The lingering taste of cinnamon. My exhaustion from getting water that morning. And the haunted gaze of Ziad al-Kharraf when he'd asked me to make his poem into a song. Ziad's pain, the starving children of Yarmouk, and my brother's disappearance were all tearing at my heart. I was angry that the piano was out of tune, angry at my wounded hand. Closing my eyes, I began to sing, pouring all my despair into Ziad's poem. My song became a cry, the cry of a man plunging into an abyss and giving voice to his descent into hell. I forgot my name. I have lost my name, its letters and its meaning. I have lost the words that I need to sing my song. That was when Niraz must have snapped the picture. Today people sometimes ask me, "When you lived in that Palestinian camp, what color was your tent?" Although Yarmouk was officially a refugee camp, it was in fact a real neighborhood with real buildings. I used to own an apartment, a nice spacious apartment. I sold ouds, and my business had been thriving. But the war had destroyed it all. A grenade had cut the tendon between 2 of my fingers. A girl who had been standing next to my piano one day had been shot to death.